when I was 21. I transferred to a college in San Francisco. I checked out a room for rent on Craigslist. It was a really nice 2-bedroom apartment. It was cheap rent and close to campus, so it was kind of ideal. The girl who lived there was 29, and her name was Beth. She was tall and wide, and she had jet black hair and wore pale makeup. She seemed nice, although a bit quiet. But she seemed to like me and agreed to let me move in. So far, so good. My first night there, we went out for pizza, and that's when I could tell something was a little bit off with her. Throughout dinner, she kept telling me how much I look like Shia LaBeouf. I didn't know what to say really, so I just shrugged it off with a thanks. I mean, I look nothing like Shia LaBeouf, so it just didn't make any sense to me. When we got back home, she asked if I had seen her room yet. I said no, and so she took me in there to see it. Her walls were covered with posters of Shia LaBeouf. She even had printed out pictures of him all over the mirror. She owned all his movies. I didn't know what really to make of this. It was kind of creepy. The whole night she had been saying that I look like him, and now it's pretty obvious that she was obsessed with the guy. So now a few weeks have passed, and I never really saw her that much. We didn't spend any time together really. She would come home from work and practically run into her room. She would spend the whole night in there. She had a creepy, high-pitched giggle, and I would just hear her giggling through the walls all night. I wondered what the hell she could possibly be doing. Occasionally she would come out and talk to me for like 2 minutes, and she would always be slurring her words, so I suspected she drinks a lot. Sometimes she wouldn't say anything, she would just stand there in the hallway and watch me in the living room. I would turn and see her and be surprised and say, "Hello, Beth?" And then there would be a long, awkward pause, and she would just start giving out that creepy, high-pitched giggle she has. It was definitely uncomfortable being around her. She gave me the chills. One night I woke up at around 2 a.m. because I heard what sounded like the front door being unlocked. I came out of my room and all the lights were off, but I could see Beth standing at the front door. She had her face against it, and she was turning the lock back and forth over and over again. And every time she turned the bolt, she mumbled my name. Max Barker. Max Barker. Max Barker. Seeing her stand in the dark, mumbling my name really freaked me out. And it doesn't help that she kinda looked like a bigger version of the girl from The Ring. I just quietly went back to my room and tried to sleep. After that, there was this one night. I was watching The Gladiator, and she stumbled out of her room and turned the living room light on, forcing me to stop the movie, which was pretty fucking annoying. She then asked if I wanted to hear about her ex-boyfriend. It was an uneasy topic, but I just said sure, and then awkwardly sat back to listen to her. 10 minutes into her story, she was so riled up. She was screaming at the top of her lungs about their breakup. I was worried that the neighbors were gonna call the cops at this point, and she wasn't listening to me when I was asking her to lower her volume. Amidst of all of her screaming, one thing she said that really freaked me out was how slit his fucking throat. That was a big game changer to me. Suddenly I had no idea what this girl was capable of. She was practically a stranger, and everything I had seen was becoming alarmingly disturbing. After a few more minutes, she told me thanks for listening and started doing that fucking giggle. I got out of there pretty fast and went to my room to go to sleep. I had a pretty unsettled feeling about being in this house with her now. And what's worse is that there was no locks on the bedroom. I pushed the edge of my dresser in front of it to act as a little barricade. I somehow figured out how to doze off or something. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of my dresser scraping across the floor. Beth was pushing the door open. I turned on the light, shouting her to stop. I could see her through the opening of the door. She was so drunk. She had this insane look in her eyes. I jumped up and pushed the door closed and yelled for her to go back to bed. I could hear her walk back into her room, but I couldn't fall back asleep after that. Hell no. But what's worse is the next morning when I woke up, I went into the hallway and my heart dropped. I saw one of her steak knives was on the floor in front of my door. I got goosebumps all over my arms. All I could think about was her saying that she was going to slit that guy's throat. I confronted her about it and she said that she didn't remember any of this. She didn't remember trying to open my door. She didn't remember even talking about her ex. I had enough. My lease was month to month, so I found a new spot and moved out. About a month after I moved out, she contacted me. I was at the movies when she sent the messages, and my phone was off. When I got out and turned my phone on, and to my shock I received 40 plus text messages that she had sent me over the past 2 hours. They were all insane texts, range from everything between "Hi, how are you?" to "I fucking hate you." It was insane. I didn't respond and I never heard from her again. I always wonder if I hadn't had set my dresser in front of my door, if she would have quietly come in there and slit my throat. It freaks me out. I was talking to a seller on Craigslist that was selling a Galaxy S3 phone case. I talked to him for quite a bit and finally came up to the conclusion that I would meet him at his house later that night. For some reason, I had no red flags at this point. So, I decided to go ahead and head that way. When I arrived at his home, it looked very run down. Like it was run down as hell. Like it looked really nasty. Well, just vile. He showed me the case outside of his home, and it went great. But his breath stunk so horribly. I wanted to throw up on the fucking spot. When we did the exchange, the case was $15, no big deal. But then he decided to offer me to come in. He gave me this creepy fucking grin. For some reason it reminded me a lot of the kids cartoon from back in the day, if you know what I'm talking about. The movie The Grinch is exactly how it fucking looked. I very nicely told him no, that I had to get going. But then he started being persistent. I started to turn around, and then I just feel somebody grab my arm. He grabbed me and just smiled. I yanked away and ran to my car. He just stood there and stared at me. I had my headlights on and he was just sitting there, grinning. He just stood there. I immediately backed up very quickly and hauled ass out of there, keeping my eye on the rearview mirror, just watching him fade slowly to black. I thought about calling the cops. I just don't know what they would have even been able to do. I just feel so scared. I never used Craigslist again after that, and I have a pretty damn good reason why. A guy made a Craigslist posting saying he was a talent scout and ran an agency. He got the interest of a father, grandfather, and his granddaughter. This guy's specialty was casting families, preferably children, under the disguise that he was looking to produce a film and needed actors. Not too long ago, the grandfather and his granddaughter went to meet with the guy up at the house. They actually drove by 2 hours early to check out the house before going to it. There was a for sale sign outside the house, and it appeared vacant. The family drove by at the agreed time to meet in the morning and were greeted at the door with a man in a suit. He tried to convince the little girl to come inside many times. The grandfather got a bad feeling and left. Turns out, in an unrelated sting, the police caught this guy for child porn charges. He had 10 counts of child porn, and his house was raided. The father and grandfather, around the same time, reported this incident to the police. When the police found this guy, he had a bag with him. In it was a knife, zip ties, sex toys, and even a plastic sheet. He was going to pretty much kill the grandfather, then rape and murder the child. His plan was to get this all on film. Sick fuck. The camera was set up and ready to go. Luckily, the father and grandfather had a gut feeling of that something was off, and reported the incident. This guy happened to be a kid I pretty much grew up with knowing for about 15 years. He was even my brother's roommate for a while. He was always very creepy, and I just couldn't pinpoint why exactly. I felt my stomach drop reading this news. This guy has been inside my home, went to parties, even my birthday party. I have had multiple conversations with him. Luckily, he won't be getting out of jail anytime soon. And I'm glad. People, just watch out using Craigslist. There are a lot of lunatics on there. And I would rather you not be one of the victims to one of them. Thanks for watching. More content and everything else will be consistent. Make sure to go check out my links in the description. My Twitter and Instagram and TikTok links are in the bio. If you enjoyed this, make sure to give a like and comment and tell me how you feel about it. I tend to try to respond to everybody, but I will say, I do want to say thank you and that I appreciate all of the love that I've been receiving lately. It gives me motivation and wanting to do it more. So, hopefully I'll see you in the next one.